I'll record myself later on. Don't worry about it. And so, a local expert here, and if you could, I'm sorry, I know that you work in the health.
Yes, I'll say something.
Okay, is an expert, as I understand it, within the area of water and sanitation. Is that correct? And works in the Baltimore area. Is that no? Washington D.C. Okay. And we'll also add on to the piece of it. So the thinking on this was just to go back and look at the World Health Organization, which is the core of looking at world issues in relation to health, and what they're laying out as the Millennium Development Goals. And I pulled out those that are most directly tied into health, just to take a look at beginning the conversation around those factors, how Sierra Leone falls vis-a-vis the primary goal, Millennium Development Goals. So if that's okay, back row, we'll proceed with having a dialogue in relation to those points. The first of which is goal 1 is eradicating extreme poverty and hunger. And as you know, that's a really critical issue in Sierra Leone, with over 27% of the population underweight, and that affecting health status. Improving maternal health, this one is absolutely, you've probably all heard the news recently, absolutely unconscionable. 1 in 8 women dying in childbirth. That is a major impact, and that has to do with the survival long-term of your country and your people. 40% of the births attended by health professionals, a real dearth of people available to provide that type of support. Goal 6, combating HIV, AIDS, malaria, and other diseases. While the HIV prevalence rates are not well documented in the country of Sierra Leone, you can't really find good up-to-date stats. Don't be fooled by not seeing numbers and thinking nothing's happening, because if you look at the pattern of HIV worldwide, it absolutely follows poverty and war. And what do we know about Sierra Leone? It is emerging from a time period of war and is in extreme poverty, so absolutely expect. And as you look at other bloodborne pathogen disease items that exist, that if they exist and are identified, you can be assured that this is paralleling and just has not been identified. Malaria, acute respiratory infections, and diarrhea, primary causes of untimely death, with very low life expectancy rates. Under 5 mortality rate, highest in the world. And that just was again brought out. That was a piece of media that got brought out not too long ago, but very critical in looking at, you can move ahead, at the factor of your children dying before they reach 5 years of age. Of course, that leading to then more births desired, more maternal deaths, etc. Goal 7, and this is where my partner here is going to really be able to hone in with ensuring environmental sustainability, access to clean drinking water. Very small amount, but even bigger than that, there's a larger number of people who have access to clean drinking water than have access to adequate sanitation facilities. That contributing to all of the particular things that we've already talked about, diarrhea, cholera, the opportunistic infections that are associated with HIV.
In Pujon District, and I'm just about ready to take them in August, and I just want to applaud, instill in everyone here to divorce yourself from the money you make here and what your expectations are there, because it's a fulfillment. I came back about 2 years ago, and for personal reasons, but I'm happy I made that decision.
Thank you very much. Make sure you register.
I'll be fine to you, sir.
Okay.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah, well, along with what Ms. Keller said, that's the reason why maybe the next time around we're not just going to think about 15 scholarships to 15 individuals. We may even use that money to provide school materials that would benefit a much wider population. Say if we gather school materials and take them to Sierra Leone and give them to the Ministry of Education, that would affect more children than just 15 scholarships for 15 children.
Yes.
A couple of things. I think perhaps it's really focus on actionable targets. You know, this is very good. We have a very kaleidoscopic view of these sectors, very, very huge. And I'm particularly attracted to the vocational curriculum, because we have a lot of young people right now roaming the streets. And one thing that we have not been able to do, and this is where I think is what I mean by actionable targets, that we could focus even a small program that will let young people realize that vocational education is not a bad thing, that all work is honorable, and lacuna also within that general area of plan. When we say vocational education, we do not teach people how to develop resources to carry out their vocation. An example in point, when we try to rehabilitate these young people after the war, the government set up the rehabilitation, reintegration, etc., demobilization program. They got these young guys who have known nothing but killing people since age 9. They trained them for 3 months. Okay? You have to be a carpenter or something like that. They gave them tools. Okay? You know what happened? 1 week after they gave them the tools, they sold them. Okay? Now, and they were wondering, oh, if we give these guys tools, they sold them. Yes, but you have to teach them. And you cannot just give people the tools without sourcing them how to use that tools and generate them. So I think we could, in actionable ways, target these places in which we can make an impact. So we decide that, okay, we want to get into the vocations, try to advise on so and so. My second and last point, we have to be extremely careful with the way we deal with our colleagues back home. I hear you use the term gurus. I think that would be a very wrong term to use to say that we are the gurus here. There are wonderful gurus in Sierra Leone. Yes. In fact, exceptional gurus in Sierra Leone. Because those people work under the most hideous conditions, yet they are producing good people. So what we need to do is to work in tandem with them. In fact, we should give them that nomenclature more than we give that to ourselves. So they should take the lead. We provide the kinds of resources. So I beg and I appeal to us to really make those kinds of connections. And the shipments, look, there are all kinds of organizations shipping things. You see, her church is doing a shipment. Maybe we can start coordinating this. A lot of groups are sending stuff home. We don't know who is sending what. We don't know if the books, as Professor Taylor just mentioned here, are these books relevant to the curriculum? So we could be a coordinating unit to make sure that we need actionable stuff. So when we come back next year and we had all these groups, we'll say, what did these people do in advocacy? What did they do in education? So we don't come and just talk about the same thing. We want actions.
Yes, that's why we're here at this particular point. Now, like I said, at this particular moment, action. All talk is cheap. Please.
Yes, my name is LeoneClub. I'm also, I think, about to be a member.
Yes.
I was actually one of those who were at the very first meeting.
Yes.
Over the years. But as some of you may know, I have been involved with the Prince of Wales School. I'm the president of the alumni in New Jersey. But what I want to say is, as Cecil has said, we need to do actionable things. Your presentation, you mentioned that the minister is talking about building 48 technical schools or colleges in Sierra Leone, which sounds like a very noble idea. But, I think there's a lot of problems in Sierra Leone and they have to be addressed. And we can only do so much. For example, I know the last government decided to build all these schools up in the provinces in places where nobody was there.
Yeah.
So a lot of these schools are just, and the construction was shoddy, and so building a technical school sounds like a good idea. But, for example, I went home this last Christmas, and one of the things that amazed me is the population is in Freetown has now gone to 1.5 million or whatever it is, 2 million. But since independence, there has not been a secondary school built in Freetown. You might be amazed, but this is true. Neither has there been a hospital. So there's all these issues. So, these things have to be targeted. And I think what we have to do is again, get data that we can then be informed to make suggestions to the government. And I think one of the things we do have to do is, we can't come and presuppose that we're the experts. they will really just say, and so it has to be a dialogue, and you have to come up with suggestions, and I think that's basically how we need to move forward with things like this.
Okay.
Thank you, Melvin.
Quickly, the question